It's so important to show empathy to our fellow people and animals, and part of this means we don't turn a blind eye to what is going on in our homes, workplaces, communities, and world. When anyone is suffering, we need to raise awareness rather than turn away. But what happens when the attention you pay, the energy you give, and the time you spend begin to hurt you too? Currently, some real atrocities are going on in the world, and there are so many amazing people doing their bit to raise awareness, to protest, and to stand up and fight the good fight. But what happens when these people themselves are harmed by their activism? What I'm talking about here is their mental health. I have a client who has spoken to me about her suffering. She's enmeshed in the current and ongoing conflict in the Middle East. She writes about it in her work. She rallies and goes to protests, even going to the border in Egypt. She researches and talks about it with those in the know and those not. And she's active on social media, which makes her a target for some, because she essentially lives and breathes it. It is her life. This is an admirable and noble level of devotion, and we need people like her. So what's the problem? Vicarious trauma. This person is suffering herself because she is daily exposed to the darkest side of humanity. She witnesses death, destruction, trauma, and depravity on the grandest scale. She hurts for those who suffer and die, the children and all the innocent. She cannot do this without this suffering and trauma seeping into her skin. It affects her life in all kinds of ways. Everything else has become meaningless, and she can't do anything other than focus on the fight. Her relationships have suffered because when her friends are not able to share in her passion for their own reasons, she loses interest and respect for them and cannot bring herself to bother with them anymore. This creates a certain level of isolation, such that all the people she associates with are only those who are in this world of brutality. Yes, they are all in it together, but this becomes a kind of group trauma. Their bond is the fight and suffering. It is noble and important, but her world becomes, in many and possibly all ways, one in which she too suffers. How can someone like me say to this person that what she does is wrong in any way? Because it is a wonderful and admirable cause. I am grateful for her and those like her who take up the fight for those who cannot do so for themselves. As a psychologist, I can focus on the micro-suffering of individual people, as she and people like her focus on the macro-suffering of groups of people. But I do have some advice for you and anyone like her, because what you do is important and necessary, but so are you. You're no good to anyone if your mental health has suffered to such a degree that you're having thoughts of meaninglessness and hopelessness about life. You must take breaks from your cause. This doesn't mean you're abandoning it. It means you're tagging in your comrades and taking a breather so you can come back stronger. Those you fight for will thank you for your efforts, but they will also want you to take care of yourself so you can fight for them. So you must fight for yourself too, even if it's hard for you to do this. So what does this look like? Am I saying you should stop? Hell no. What I recommend is less exposure to death and destruction, the very things that create fear, anxiety, trauma, and hopelessness in you. We cannot be exposed to such content for extended periods without it impacting our own mental health and well-being. We will suffer because we're human and can only take so much. So try to remember that those you fight for don't want you to suffer with them. They want to stop suffering. Help yourself by taking some mini breaks and self-care. Do trivial things or talk about trivial things with the friends that aren't involved in this world, even if you have to force yourself. Because unfortunately, it's likely that the cause will still be there, waiting for you to return. And you will return, somewhat refreshed, stronger, and ready to carry on.